And now, Friday the 13th, top 13 characters. We have characters from the first, second, fourth, sixth, and 11th movies left in the list. We have 13 characters left, obviously, I already said that. And right into it, because I don't know how much fucking time I left to have to film. 13th place, Megan Garris from the 6th movie. I already gone into, I love snark. It's very attractive, and she is attractive, and the whole scene, the whole play out of the fucking movie is amazing. She's a badass, and like I want to limit the amount of times that I say the word snark, but I'm gonna try not to just gush over characters this whole fucking time because I have very little time left to film on this video, which sucks because I had a lot more footage left when I started, so I'm probably talking more about the characters that I hate than the ones that I like. But, you know, whatever. I'm probably going to talk a lot more about the killers that are left. So what I'm going to get into next, and that's the last character from the 6th movie. I don't know if I said that, but to be introduced in the 6th movie, I should say, because Tommy and Jason are still here. But next is the last character introduced in the 2nd movie, which would be Vicky. I already said that I love her and Mark's relationship in the 2nd movie the most, out of the relationships. She's just... It's just... I love this character. Like, her method of trying to flirt with Mark is just so... It's like, it's weird because it's like wholesome and horny at the same time. And that makes it weird. But it's quirky, and it makes them stand out, as opposed to just filthy wanting to fuck all the time, and like weird perv that's just stalking the chick kind of, and then Paul and Jenny, who have the most normal relationship, even though he's her boss. Anyway, I like Vicky the most out of the Friday the 13th Part 2 characters, and she's 12th place. In 11th place, we have Gib, played by Catherine Isabel. And Catherine Isabel is one of my earliest and longest crushes. Love Catherine Isabel. Anywho, she's 11th place. Gib's a great character. I mean, she has horrible taste in men, and she doesn't last very long, but she was always my favorite of the 3 girls in the movie. And I always did think it was weird that there was like 20 dudes in that movie and 3 girls. Because it's weird. But she was the best of them. Because she seemed the most fun and the least full of herself. Like, Lori had a lot more drama going on with Will and her mom and her dad and all that shit. And Kia was just obnoxious and said some really fucked up shit at the end of the movie. That I still laugh at, because that's how I react to things that age poorly, is I laugh that got past the editing bay. And I'm like, oh, us and society. It's probably not the best way to react to it, but that's the way I react to it. But Kia didn't rank very highly either. But Gib ranked very highly, and that is where she landed. Next, we have the top 10. And we have Jack, Kevin Bacon himself. And he is obviously ranked this high because he's Kevin fucking Bacon, but also because he's the first of the 2 horny, he's the first of the horny couples character trope in the Friday the 13th franchise. And I like the character. At number 9, we have Freeburg, who is a Freddy vs. Jason character, who is basically Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. And I like Jay and Silent Bob, for the most part. I don't like Clerks 3 at all, but I love, Dogma and Strike Back and all that stuff. Clerks 1 and 2, fuck yeah. I like Freeburg a lot. I mean, dude, that goalie was pissed about something. This was, one of the first, true stoner characters that I had really seen in cinema was Freeburg, probably, I would think. But at number 8, we have Marcy. And Marcy is hilarious. When the snake dies, she's like, well, At least we know what's for dinner. I mean, in the same note, number 7 is Ned from the first movie. Goofball, who does the very inappropriate Native American impersonation, among other things. Marcy and Ned have always made me laugh. Every single time I see the movie, those two make me laugh. I mean, either that or he's got a very short clone. They both have such quick quips when the snake dies. And, like, all throughout the movie, great stuff. Love these two characters. They're iconic, iconic characters. And number 6, we have Annie from the first movie. And she is you think she's going to be the final girl, but she's not. And she's just the nicest person ever. And that's why she ranks this high. I love this character. Just the nicest person ever. You think she's going to be the final girl and she dies. I already said that, but, like, there's just... And her survival instincts are pretty good. She jumps right out of that fucking truck, like, real soon after it gets sketchy. And, you know, it's just not crazy to trust Mrs. Voorhees at first sight to get into her vehicle, so... I don't know. I love Annie. She's great, but now we're in our top 5, and this is where it's going to get a little controversial here. Not because of the killers, they're not up yet, but because of the number 5 is Tommy Jarvis. And I know, blasphemy. You're like, who's number 4? Because, you know, who would be left? Who's after Tommy Jarvis that would be left? The killers. Jason, Freddy, Mrs. Voorhees. Those are the people that are left after Tommy, but who else is left? And Tommy Jarvis is the most iconic character. He starts as a kid who fights back against Jason, and then he has trauma, and he's going through the shit in the 5th movie, and he's going down the same path as Jason and Mrs. Voorhees, but between the 5th and 6th, he fucking frees himself of it, and he digs Jason up again to deal with it for the final time and finally grow past it. And he's just an iconic character, and you can really grow from him and learn from him. But there's another character introduced in the 4th movie that I like a little more, and that's Sarah from the 4th movie, who is, like, if the Jarvis family wasn't there, Sarah would have been the final girl. She's just very endearing and wholesome, and, like, I like that in a character. I mean, Annie was very high too. So was Vicky. Like, characters like that I like. And Sarah is the highest ranking character that's not a killer on this list. And honestly, when I started making the list, I didn't see that coming at all. But I'm not that shocked, but that's the last character introduced in the 4th movie to be in this list, by the way. And now we have 3 characters left. And they're all serial killers. We have Mrs. Voorhees, Jason, and Freddy. And who ranks where? Am I stalling because the next placement is Jason? Yes. 3rd place is Jason Voorhees. I know, blasphemy. I put Mrs. Voorhees above Jason and Freddy, but that's not really as bad. Jason Voorhees is an iconic character, but he puts a lot less thought into why he kills people than Mrs. Voorhees and Freddy. There's a lot less to dissect. I do love Jason, but it's difficult to put him above the other two because I don't like him as much as the other two. I love Jason. He's, like, the top 3 are all iconic killers from horror. It's not like Jason's below Sarah or, like, Shelley or something. But no, I mean, remake Jason's pretty low, but, you know, it's different because it's a different timeline. But Jason is, like, from taking into account part 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. It gets muddled. You know, there's not a lot of consistency. There's insane shit going on in 9 and 10. Freddy vs. Jason introduces a fear of water that wasn't there in fucking 4 and 6. Like, there's crazy shit going on. The fact that Jason survived drowning, and then in 8, we're like, well, did he? Because he's got these hallucinations of Kid Jason. It's just a lot of muddied water. Pun intended. And it's difficult because Jason, he's iconic. I love Jason. I love the performances of Jason. Ted White's my favorite Jason. But I just can't put him above the other two. And I might as well get into why. So, number 2, drum roll, Mrs. Voorhees. Because Mrs. Voorhees is such an iconic character. I love her. And yes, that does mean that number 1 is Freddy Krueger, because I am a Fredhead. I saw half of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies before I was 5 years old. True story. There were 8 out at that point, and I had seen 4 of them at that point. And by the time the remake aired, I had seen all of the rest of them but 2, and then I saw 2 afterwards, not long afterwards. I have a whole video on the whack order I watched them and why it went that way. But I like those movies more. There's more depth to them, and they're more creative. And to put it in layman's terms, because I don't want to go into a whole tangent about all of the deep intrinsic things about Freddy and Jason and all that stuff, because that's a whole video in and of itself, and I don't have a lot of time left on this fucking recording, probably. But to go into Mrs. Voorhees, I love Mrs. Voorhees because, like, go back to the 1957. You leave your kid alone with some camp counselors, and then they go off to fuck, and Jason drowns your son. And now you're left distraught, so you kill them. And then they keep reopening the camp, and you're just thinking, when these fucking horny fucking teenagers can't watch kids, more kids are gonna die. And so you just snap. And you just start fucking with the camp to make sure they can't open. And then one day, they're reopening again. And you just fucking go mad. Steve Christie should know better. His parents were there when Jason drowned. Steve was a little boy. He was like 10. So it's like Mrs. Voorhees has a lot more depth to her. I mean, I've gone through this in other videos. I don't know if they've been posted. Probably not. But because I have a habit of recording long videos and then not having the ability to edit them or export them or upload them. Sorry, but Mrs. Voorhees is great. I love her more than Jason. Because she's so iconic. I mean, Friday the 13th one is the second one of these I saw, and the first one was Freddy versus Jason. So, yeah. Love Mrs. Voorhees. But number 1 is Freddy Krueger. And Freddy Krueger, I don't consider Freddy a pedo. I think he's just a child murderer. There's a reason that I don't include Remake Freddy among other Freddy, and I also don't include Wes Craven's New Nightmare Freddy, because that's a demon pretending to be Freddy in the real world. So I'm taking into account the first 6 movies in this Freddy vs. Jason. And if I'm taking into account the first 6 movies and Freddy vs. Jason, then there's no fucking competition. Freddy has to beat everyone. He's the most fucking iconic killer ever. He is... and I know this is a Friday the 13th character ranking, whatever. I'm a Freddy fan first. A Jason fan, like, not even second, probably. Obviously, because Mrs. Voorhees is above Jason. But Freddy rules. That's what I'll say. And I'm sure eventually I'll probably rank all the Freddys, and then you'll get to see how insanely low Freddy Remake ranked, and if he was in this list, he'd rank last place, below Frizzle and Trey. But I didn't combine them because this is already a 200 fucking character video, and fuck that noise. But if I ever do the Freddy character ranking, Jason will appear in that one too. So you'll get to see how many Freddy characters ranked above him, because spoiler alert, my top 2 are not going to be Jason and Freddy in my Freddy ranking one. But that's all for now. Top 13, Friday the 13th characters. I managed to get through the whole fucking 200-part video with the video cutting out, like, I don't have any more storage since, like, number 45 or so. So this has been an experience. I have, like, no apps left on my phone besides 1 or 2, but one of them isn't necessary. It's a whole thing, but I did it. I said I was going to do it years ago, but now there's a show coming out, and I just have the Friday fever. I've been writing my fan film, and part of me did want to just think about what I like in a Friday the 13th character, and how much I like certain killers, and all this stuff and junk and poop. And if you're interested, maybe I'll do a Jason ranking. I already was gonna do a looks of Jason ranked, which is different, but that's a whole other thing. I'm getting tired just thinking about this. I want to decompress and not have to stress about deleting more apps. So, like, subscribe, and all that bullshit. I'm sure eventually I'll rank the Freddy characters. I'm going to do Wrong Turn characters. And I might do the Texas characters. But remember, I have a habit of not finishing these kind of things because my life is hectic. I have a job now, though. So, hopefully, shit's gonna get figured out better. And once I find my own place again, and I have my TV set up again, and all that fun stuff, then I will eventually get back to the Doctor Who reactions. I know some of you, I know most of you probably don't watch that section of my videos, whatever. But that's all kind of why I don't fucking post that much, because I have a lot going on. But I wanted to get this done, because just the idea of ranking all the Friday the 13th characters is an insane task. Because there's so many of them. I left a lot out. I left out random cops. I left out all the partiers. One partier that had a name, Teammate, because his head spun around. I left out some characters. And it was still 200 people. And it took a long time to fucking do this. And it's going to take way longer to edit it, because I'm not going to be able to export it, and so I'm going to have to do a whole fucking thing, probably with my friend's computer or something. I don't know. We'll see. I'm stressed. You can tell because I'm balding. Here's a hit to finishing the video, though. Like, subscribe, all that bullshit. I'm sure I've said that like 3 times. Bye.